Welcome back to the final run in this series. Final Fantasy V is behind us with its very interesting run, and now I arrive in Final Fantasy XII, a game which did not actually have a job class system on its original release. Rather, this was added to the international version released in Japan after the original release. But eventually they did release a remaster of Final Fantasy XII in July 2017. This version, dubbed the Zodiac Age, brought the game to modern remaster standards and had the job class system as the only progression path. Which is fine, the original system was not good. Also, for reasons unclear to me, if you search the Zodiac Age, Google will tell you all about it, but the sidebar says its initial release was in 2006, which did give me a minor panic attack. No, that's impossible. This couldn't have been released that long ago. Why has time so cruelly... wait, that's the original's release date. The Zodiac Age came out in 2017. Still 7 years ago, but not a full 18. Anyway, let's dive in. Time for a bit of tutorializing while the game really gets going. And that is a big issue I have with Final Fantasy XII. It does not want to hand over control of its many systems. And it waits too long to do so. But no worries, we'll get there soon. Rex teaches us our basic controls until he has a bad day. Then we advance to our protagonist Vaan and get to choose our license board. And this is how the job class system works in Final Fantasy XII. Each of your 6 playable characters can choose one of 12 jobs aligning to the Zodiac. Later they can unlock a second grid. Except we can't, obviously, because everyone will be choosing Black Mage, which means everyone will be almost identical. I say almost identical, and we will get to why later. For now, we select Black Mage and we head into the plains to meet up with Penelo to get a Sunstone sorted out. This is going to let us access the party the Occupying His Army is hosting for funsies. We engage in a yelling puzzle to evade the guards, which humorously isn't even the only shouting puzzle in this game. After some shenanigans, we meet up with our next 2 characters, Balthier and Fran, aka Leading Man and Sexy Chewbacca. This also introduces us to actually setting up gambits, which means we can define criteria for our characters to automatically use abilities, spells, etc. Which is great with how enemies are all over, and setting up character attack patterns is a nice boon to make the combat feel expedient. Now that I can set up gambits, I can finally automate attacks, specifically spell attacks, which is great considering my basic attacks are incredibly weak. And we learn the biggest difference between characters. Every character starts with a few innate licenses. These are default abilities that each character has, regardless of the license board you choose for them. This means Vaan starts with Steel no matter what his job is, and Fran starts with the incredibly useful Cure. Because she's a Black Mage, she'll never get better Cure spells, but basic Cure can stay surprisingly useful thanks to magic boosts, as we will discover later. The different characters also have different stat distributions. The distributions aren't huge, but they can be significant in a single class challenge. Also, for conformity with prior challenges, I will probably refer to them as jobs rather than license boards, but just know that's technically what I am referring to. Anyway, first boss is a bunch of Flan that are weak to fire. This does not prove difficult. Second boss is a Fire Horse, which is a bigger problem. I'm forced to rely on my character's weak physical attacks, as my only spell that I have available will deal no damage. It can also inflict statuses that I don't have any way to cure right now. Once I get access to a shop, I can get better stuff, but for now this early fight is a challenge. But with the Fire Horse dead, we are captured by the Imperials, thrown into jail, and forced to fight for someone's amusement? I have no weapons in this fight, but that's fine because the fire spell exists. We break out, rescue our soon-to-be party member Bosch, and it's time for the Barheim Passage. We finally have a shop, which is great, because we can buy Thunder, so now we have 2 spells and 2 different elements. We don't have a good variety yet, but it is enough to power through this area. And while the Mimic Queen at the end can be challenging, our damage is okay. It's not great, but it is good enough. I'm really curious to see where this game falls on the damage scale. Will it be Final Fantasy I's barely functional, or Final Fantasy V's why can I deal this much damage? But with the Mimic Queen dead, we can return to Rabanastre. Our first step is the newly opened Gambit shop, because for reasons unclear to me, you have to buy the Gambits to customize your automatic skill use. I do not know why. It was even worse in the original release, as many very useful Gambits weren't available for purchase until very late in the game. But now we can buy Gambits that target enemies that are weak to an element with that element. Despite that not technically making us stronger, it is a functional increase in convenience that ends up making us stronger. Reunite with Bosch, and he joins as a permanent party member, except we won't actually use him because his stats are rubbish for playing a black mage. Then Fran and Balthier rejoin the party. We will be using them again, but only for a little bit. It's time to head to Bougerba to rescue the kidnapped Penelo. We join up with this little boy, Lamond, who we'll see a couple times throughout the game, and he's definitely not a prince. Into the Lusu Mines and to this bridge, which is an amazing place to grind for money, because the only enemies here are undead, so you can build up a loot chain very easily. Oh, right, I should mention there are no boosts in this game like there were in the prior two, because this is not part of the Pixel Remaster series. I mean, look at this, there are simply too many pixels to remaster. But that's okay. The grind can be rough in this game, but the remaster lets us set the game speed to 4 times or 2 times speeds. If you're familiar with this game, you may have already noticed, but I actually generally play the whole game in 2 times speed, because the base speed feels so slow. There is no boss in these mines. I mean, there kind of is, but you're told to run and get no reward for fighting, so goodbye, Begamnon. Penelo has been rescued-ish, but is in the care of Lamont, i.e. Prince Larsa. With the money we got from the Corpse Bridge, we can finally get some good Mystic Armor and a Charge Technic to restore MP. No one knows Charge yet on the license board, but they will soon. I do try to grind on the bridge for more money, but without any good healing access now that Larsa is gone, it doesn't go great. Really concerned about healing, and the fact that my spell damage is still really awful. Okay, let's meet with authority figure Marquis Ondor, who immediately gets us arrested, but to rescue a princess. Battle through the ship and its security, and I am really unimpressed by the damage my magic is doing. Is this run going to have bad healing and bad damage? Next boss is a fight against these dudes, I guess, which takes so long, but they do die, eventually. We recruit Lady Ashe, who we did briefly work with earlier in the game as Amalia, and she is in, and Balthier is out. Her magic stat is simply higher than his, actually tied with a character who we'll get shortly, and Balthier's magic stat is actually garbage. Also, she has the cure spell innately, like Fran does, which is very nice. 2 people can cure with magic. Back the way we came, and we rescue Penelo, and she joins the party. And to the front line she goes, because she also has a stupidly high magic stat. Which means our final party is assembled. Vaan, Ashe, and Penelo. Our next boss is Judge Geese. This fight takes a bit, because my damage is awful, and my healing is limited. But I now have 2 characters who can restore their MP with charge, so it's kind of inevitable that I win this. After that, our party arrives at the Ogiriensa Sansi, and it's time to cross 2 boring deserts. But before that, we can finally buy our first multi-target spell. Combined with a lot of wind-weak enemies, and the wind-weak gambit means we can deal unreasonable damage. It is at this point I remembered, oh right, this is when magic pops off. Vossler, who we briefly worked with earlier, is back in the party as a guest. The sheer power of multi-target arrow means this whole area dies very, very quickly. Then the Namyensa Sansi, which is as quick and uninteresting as the Ogiriensa Sansi. Ooh, I can already buy high potions? Now this is how you pace out consumables access. Final Fantasy V. Then the next boss dies so fast I don't even have time to try and steal from it. In Wraithwall's Tomb, I try to fight the first demon wall, but the damage I'm doing combined with statuses means it just doesn't work. Which is fine, the first fight is optional. The second demon wall moves slower, deals less damage, and has less HP, so I get through just fine. Exploring the dungeon brings us to our first Esper, Belias, who is weak to water spells, which I have, so he dies pretty quickly. Wow, magic really popped off very suddenly. And now we have an Esper. I never really use Espers in the game, because in the original release they weren't really that useful, and I assume that hasn't changed. Vossler has betrayed us to the Empire, so there are some tense political machinations before a missed accident drives Fran berserk. But this gets us free, and it's time to make our second escape from this death trap. The Vossler fight here is normally super easy, so I'm sure it won't... Oh, okay. So Vossler is the first enemy that casts Reflect on themselves. This is a problem, considering my damage is all spell-based. He is not the last to employ this strategy. I try to make use of Dispel Notes to remove Reflect, and he immediately recasts it, so we're gonna have to smack him with staves. He also gets more aggressive as his HP lowers, which is pretty common from bosses in this game, but it does mean in this case I have to play a lot of HP whack-a-mole to keep my health up. It takes a lot of potions and cures, but he does finally die, which I appreciate. Then, a nice full party scene to really unite the characters. Say what you will about Final Fantasy XII, but the story is really very good. I may be glossing over most of it for this video, but I do generally think it has one of the best stories in a mainline Final Fantasy game. The recording for this video actually took longer than it needed to, because I was watching cutscenes I could have skipped. Party united and now free to travel as they see fit, we head back across the Giza Plains, but wet this time, into the Osmond Plains to see the Gareth. They can't help us, but we do reunite with Larsa and start on the trek to Mount Baramises, our next destination. We have to stop in Fran's home of Irut Village to get some context for her character, which is great, because these characters are great. We then head into Hen Mines to rescue Fran's sister. The mines themselves are really easy, but the boss is a problem, because it casts Reflect on itself, like so many other bosses, which is a big pain. The boss dies, but only after way too many smacks with my staves. Really need to figure out a solution to my Reflect problem. Hen Mines is completed, and we resume our journey to Mount Baramises, which gets off swimmingly with a forest dragon. It's not too bad, but it doesn't have an attack that imposes a bunch of statuses. Typical grass type. Mount Baramises itself has new spells and better equipment. We meet Al Cid from Rosaria. He is not very important. Then to the Still Shrine of Miriam to follow Ash's queenly destiny. Nothing here is really that difficult, and we reach the boss fairly quickly. The boss has magnet powers, which drastically slow any party member with metal equipment, which is not relevant at all, so it dies. And then the final boss of the shrine also casts Reflect, which is fine. I have to set up a Reflect-specific gambit, and the fight is very slow, because while my magic damage is great, my physical damage is not. And Marius gets more aggressive as the fight goes on, and without proper healing, it becomes harder and harder to keep my party alive. I still manage to win, but it's by the skin of my teeth. Reflect is really becoming a problem. Back to Mount Baramises, and it's time to fight another judge, Bergen. His physical attacks do hit like a truck, but he doesn't have Reflect, so I can spam magic spells and destroy him pretty easily. Bergendad, our next destination, is Arcades, the seat of the Empire itself, which is a bit of a journey. We head through the Mosphoran highways, then the Salika Wood, and we arrive in the Fawn Coast, halfway through our journey. I briefly attempt to kill the Bomb King in the Salika Wood to get access to the Nabrius Deadlands, but no, that's not on the cards today. Time for a bit of off-screen money grinding. That done, we advance to the Tichita Uplands and into the Sochin Cave Palace. Sorry if I'm just throwing names out there, but there are a lot of locations in Final Fantasy XII, and while all are distinct and beautiful, Not all are narratively or mechanically interesting. We take 2 tries to bring down the Mandragora family because while our damage against them is great, their status effects are not. Ahriman is also a pain in the butt. Partly because I'm a bit underleveled, and partly because I'm understocked on the healing items I desperately need, because my only white magic is Cure. I leave, head to a shop, and come back, and the extra healing is just barely enough to see me through. It does burn through both of my 2 Hastega motes. Oh, motes! I forgot to explain those. They basically let a character cast a spell they otherwise couldn't, but they are consumable items, and you can't buy them, just find them in various chests around the world. And I'm not even going to get into the chest system in this game, because it is very stupid. With the final boss of the Cave Palace down, we emerge in Arcades, and we can buy our latest spells, including Thundaga, and more importantly, X Potions, which you can buy in a shop, like a normal game. Final Fantasy V. Our next destination is the Draclor Laboratories, but we have some things we need to do first. Item 1 is Teleport Stones. These are a consumable resource that allows transport between orange crystals, but we are running low and we can't buy them yet. We need to advance our clan rank to do so. Which, yes, there is a clan you can join that unlocks rare monster hunts, which advance your rank to improve item access at this shop in the bazaar. Very fun in concept, very boring in practice. I burnt through a bunch of boring hunts, mostly because I am very high level for these. This bunny one is still very annoying because it runs away, and I can't stop it with any of my spells. Also, I didn't know that there are, frankly, too many skeletons on this map, which makes hunting the bunny even harder and annoying. I complete all the quests I can quickly burn through, and I still can't buy teleport stones. That's not good. Let me Google this. Oh, you can just buy them at airship shops. Well, that was a waste of time. Just gonna buy 99 of these then. And another thing before we get back to the main plot. We talk to this man who unlocks the Hunter's Monograph. Monographs add new drops to certain enemy types. In a normal playthrough, I recommend purchasing them all, but only the Hunter Monograph is going to matter in this run. And that's because it lets us solve one problem and preempt another. First problem that we've encountered is enemies with Reflect. But by killing these Iguian with the Hunter Monograph, we can get Frog Spawn. 2 of these, sold to a shop, unlocks the Exquisite Ring bundle in the bazaar, which is an opal ring. This allows the wearer to bypass the Reflect status when casting spells, meaning enemies casting Reflect on themselves is no longer a problem, at least for one party member. We can get a second ring in the Nobrious Deadlands, but we aren't quite strong enough to unlock that area yet. Second item is to grind Stardust from these bunnies. Selling a few of these unlocks the Pheasant's Netsuke? I don't know how to pronounce this. This doubles all item efficacies. Black mages don't get any potion lures, so even their standard X potions are a bit on the weaker side. The Pheasant Netsuke means they should stay viable for the rest of the game. New items acquired, and it's time for Draclor. There are a number of single spawn items in here, but none are super useful for this challenge. And we arrive at the boss, Dr. Cid. Cid does cast Reflect on himself, but Penelo can just bypass it thanks to the Opal Ring, which is huge. I do briefly try punching with Vaughn using the Amber Armlet accessory, but magic staves actually still deal more damage. That's pretty rough. Fortunately, all target bios deal enough damage to get me through. Cid down, it's time to head back through the Galmor jungle and into the Feywood. This area is small and pretty easy to run through, but it's also the best money grinding area in the entire game, thanks to these bird people with Reflect dropping valuable loot in high quantities. The boss is a problem, though. It can inflict disease, which is bad, but it also drains the party's MP constantly in the arena. It takes a few tries, and I have to do some quick party swaps to my underleveled B team to revive the A team, but I do manage to pull through. And I have reached Giruvegan, land of the gods, and the first boss kills me. I think it's going to be an easy fight, and then it one-shots my entire party with one attack once its HP gets low enough. This is a problem, as you might expect. But I don't actually think it's a level problem, but a license problem. See, LP is the resource you use to unlock abilities, and I haven't really made any grinding attempts yet, so it's time for that. I equip my whole party with golden amulets, which doubles LP acquisition, and hop into trial mode. This functionally operates like a boss rush / encounter rush against interesting encounters in the game. Enemies don't drop XP, but they do drop LP, and since some are bosses, the LP can actually be quite significant. This lets me unlock many new abilities without over-leveling my party. I can afford quickenings, aka the limit breaks of other games in the series, and HP bonuses to make my party more durable. The magic lures are just a bonus. Some grinding done, it's time to actually dive into Giruvegan. The extra HP and the quickenings mean I can make quick work of Daedalus. I see what you did there. The next boss is also easy. His arena effect negates Technics, which I'm not really using, other than Charge, which is only relevant when my HP is low. He is surprisingly durable, but he doesn't really have any threatening offensive options. Finally, Shemhazai. She can one-shot my party with Flare, but she does so too slowly. So, my basic healing options easily outpace her damage, and I can spam Bio to bring her down pretty quickly. I'm really happy I took the time to get some LP for my jobs. Ash chats with the Akiria, overprotective gods of this world, and we have our new marching orders. But first, some errands. The increase in levels and licenses I've gotten means I can take down the Bomb King and access Nabrius. Sidebar, who designed this fight? It constantly casts Renew to fully heal itself at less than half health. This sucks, and is bad design. In the Nabrius Deadlands, we find our second Opal Ring, so now both Penelo and Ash can bypass Reflect. And Vaughn can heal real well thanks to the Netsuk. You go, Vaughn. Support those ladies. Then go through a boring side quest to heal a sick patient. It's a 5-stage quest to bring random healing items from around the world, which I don't care about. Except, she gives us the Barheim key to get back into the Barheim Passage from way back near the beginning of the game. Because, for reasons not clear to me, the Bangai here now sells Scourge, one of the best black magic spells in the entire game. It's basically Bio Plus, dealing nice non-elemental damage to an area. It's actually better than some of the stronger spells in this game, because the cast animation isn't so over the top. Then some more trial mode to max out my licenses. Okay, back to the plot, and it's time for the Ridorana Cataract. This area is actually a decent difficulty spike in a normal playthrough. It's not in Black Mages only, though. The first boss has a move to reduce MP to 0, but my characters can use Charge to regain MP and destroy the Hydro pretty easily. Second boss, Pandemonium, takes huge damage from my magic, then says, "Nuh-uh," and becomes immune to damage for a bit. But my healing can keep pace through this, and as soon as its defenses drop, it dies. Also, I just want to shout out that Cure, the basic healing spell, is still pulling a lot of weight. Black Mages get the best magic buffing equipment and licenses in the game, so Cure is actually healing about as much as a default X potion, despite how far we've come. It's great. Really glad Penelo and Ash get that. Anyway, Slight hits like a truck, but my damage is still keeping pace, and a quickening at the end brings it down. Why do all Final Fantasies end in a boss rush dungeon? To pass through the next area, we have to accept a limitation on our power. We choose not to be able to attack. Oh no, we can't use the attack command to ineffectually flail at enemies. Whatever will I do? Fenrir gets blasted with Scourges. I really don't think this game was designed with the idea of so much black magic spam in mind. Then Hushmal, another Esper like Belias, and it's actually a bit of a problem. He inflicts disease, and I never bothered to pick up serums, so I actually die on the first attempt. Second attempt, I managed to get a float mote out, which negates most of his attacks. Then we fight Gabranth, another judge, and he dies. Very easily. I have no notes for this fight, so it must have been a real nothing. Cid and his buddy Famfrit are not so unnotable. Cid isn't actually a problem himself, as he hasn't really changed from the prior encounter. Famfrit is, though. Combined, they hit very hard and are no slouches defensively. My entire A-team gets taken out at one point. But, despite being 30 levels lower, the B-team manages to hop in, revive the A-team, and that is enough to bring the fight into our favor. Anyway, the magic god Crystal Broken and the bad guy Vayne has unlocked his ultimate weapon, a giant sky fortress. What is with Final Fantasies and sky fortresses? I get that Final Fantasy XII has airships as a normal part of the setting, but this is still the third sky fortress in 3 games. Required boss gauntlet beaten, we can advance to the final stage of the game, the Air Fortress Bahamut. This area is surprisingly small and is really just the final boss with some added random encounters, which is fine because the plot that happens is really good. Anyway, we fight Gabranth again, and he dies really easily. He's not dangerous at all. And then Vayne Phase 1. This is an interesting challenge. He hits pretty hard and is pretty durable, but it's not too bad. Honestly, the biggest issue is he keeps unleashing his big, flashy attacks with annoying cutscenes you can't skip. But after all that, he goes down. And it's time for the final battle against the Undying. And I get completely destroyed. Okay? Having a little flashback to Exdeath and Chaos, so let's start the usual final boss problem solving. First is my level. I'm a bit weaker than I would generally recommend for this fight, and while licenses and equipment are generally more impactful than levels in this game, my licenses are maxed out, and better equipment would involve some tedious side quests. I don't want to do those, so level grinding it is. I grab a few levels and head back into Bahamut to refight the encounters leading up to the Undying. I am stronger, but it just isn't enough. My party isn't durable enough to stand up to his onslaught of attacks, and while Cure is good, it's not good enough, and X potions simply don't come out fast enough to keep my party topped off. I would probably be able to win this fight, but the boss creates a magic barrier at 75%, making him immune to magic attacks, and an Omni barrier at 25% that makes him immune to all damage. They expire, obviously, but that extra time of not dealing damage is just more time I need to survive, and I just can't. So I do consider leveling more, but another potential solution occurs to me. Espers. These summoned creatures unlockable through the story and side quests can be brought into battle against enemies. I never found them useful in the original release, and I don't think I ever even tried them in the remaster, but they are durable, and summoning them during the barrier phases may give me the extra oomph I need to bring this boss down. So, on my next attempt, I have Vaughn summon Famfrit when the Undying brings up his barrier. And Famfrit has 9,999 HP? And can cast Renew? This is good. It definitely delays my party getting devastated, but Vaughn himself goes down because spamming X potions just isn't enough to keep him alive. But I managed to bring him back and make it to the Omni Barrier phase, so next I have Ashe summon Hushmal, who is weaker than Famfrit, but... I'm sorry, is that Kiraja? A full party? All heal? Oh, do Esper spells not cost MP? I'm not seeing an MP gauge. So, yeah, I basically let Ashe and Hushmal attack the boss and cast Kiraja whenever either has slightly lower HP. I hope the Esper would get me through the barrier phase of the fight, but Hushmal's healing and damage is so absolute, I don't even notice when the Undying's barrier ends, and the boss dying is as much a surprise to me as anyone. So, yeah, that run was interesting. Engaging with the Black Mage only rule set really limited a lot of my access to healing and physical damages, and enemies who could cast Reflect were the bane of my existence. but I did always have a way around it. Because it turns out espers are really, really strong in Final Fantasy XII, at least in the Zodiac Age version. If you want to try this yourself, I'd actually recommend you not use them. I'm glad I didn't even think to try them until the very end. And to be honest, if I weren't on a deadline, I think it would have been more interesting to explore acquiring the better equipment and spells in this game. It's just trying to put out a new video every week creates some time pressures, particularly when doing a challenge series in Final Fantasy. But it was a lot of fun. Tune in next Friday where I will be going into great detail about this challenge series. Feel free to drop a like, maybe even subscribe if you want to see more of this. Either way, have a lovely day.